everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. Welcome to Comic Book Wednesday, and more than that, welcome to a Wonder Woman Wednesday. Because what we have here is a figure from 2018. This is, as far as I know, the last of the Mattel Multiverse line figures that I need to finish out the set. And this is the Rebirth figure. Like I said, it came out in 2018, pretty much, I think, a year just before they lost the license to McFarlane. Now, if you've never seen the Multiverse figures before, I was a big fan of these later boxes where it kind of has this cut in the front and they're a little bit more stylized than some of the other stuff that they put out. And I really like the coloring of these things. And I like how you have the big window up here. You can see the figure, you can see the accessories, you have the Build-A-Figure pieces in there, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I really like the comic book artwork that they put down here. Now on the side, we have that same comic book artwork. We have the DC logo. Over here, an even closer version of that artwork, a bigger version of the DC logo. Up top, just some texturing, DC melded into it. On the bottom, legalese, barcode. On the back, we have all of the figures that came with this wave, which was Vixen, Gotham by Gaslight, Batman, the Ray, and this Wonder Woman. And it was a collect and connect for Luthor in the armor. This was, I believe it was from Darkseid Wars, when Luthor sort of melded with Darkseid and became like the ultimate big bad, and he took on the Superman crest. I think that's what this is supposed to be from. Alright, so that's the packaging, and I really like the artwork. I really do. This comic book accurate, I mean, I think this came right out of the comic, to be completely honest. So let's get this open, let's take a look at Diana, and let's take a look at Mattel DC Multiverse Wonder Woman. Okay friends, here she is, Mattel Multiverse Wonder Woman out of the box, and the first thing we will do is we will put the tape measure to her, and we will see how she measures up. And putting the tape measure down, we can see that to the top of her big hair, she is approximately, she's just under 6.5 inches tall. So she comes in at your standard 6-inch scale, 1/12 scale figure that we're used to. And unfortunately, once we bring her closer and we look at the articulation, we look at the sculpt, and we especially look at the paint, we're going to be reminded why Mattel lost the multiverse, lost the DC line. And as we're looking at this and we're looking at the sculpt, and I understand things were different back in 2018, action figure manufacturing has come a long way since then, but also remember, just try and remember some of the things that like Hasbro was doing with the Marvel Legends line in 2018 as we bring her closer and we take a look at her. Okay, starting with the articulation, we're going to start at the top as we always do and work our way down. The head really doesn't go forward much. Like, it'll go forward, but it won't stay there. It can't go back at all because of this thick mane of hair. And I know we need this big mane on Wonder Woman. We need this big mane on Diana. But this is so chonky and so solid, there's no give to it at all, that it makes it very difficult for her to even turn side to side. She can do a full 360, but when it gets to stress points right here on the shoulders and her head kind of is forced into different positions, I feel like the neck is going to pop open, like right along that seam line right there. Also, there's no tilt really from side to side. There's nothing that'll stay anyway. Now we get down to the arms. The arms can come up past 90. They can do a full 360. There's no butterfly joint in the shoulder, but truthfully this was before that was a very common thing. The arms, the elbows will come up to just under 90, and there is a hinge and swivel at the elbow, single jointed elbow, hinge and swivel at the elbow, nothing in the bicep. The wrists swivel, and both of them pivot in and out. Now, she has this ab crunch right here, but she doesn't go very far forward. She can come back. Let's get her arm out of the way. She can come back, but you can see that, like, it's very loose, and even when you try and stand her up, sometimes she just falls back. Now, I don't know if that's the way the figure came, or if this is because mine has been in a box since 2018. But what's even more frustrating is there's no turn at the ab crunch at all, and there's no turn at all at the waist. It's like this is all one piece with the crotch joint here, and so she can't turn at the waist. She has this little bit of crunch right here, but there's no turn, and there's not even any side to side rock. Now, her legs will come out to there, just under 90. They go forward fairly well. They go back. There is a thigh cut, a thigh swivel. There are double jointed knees, but the second joint doesn't really hinge too much. Double jointed knees that come to there. There's no boot cut. Ankle goes back, ankle goes forward, and there is a forward facing pin for rocker. So articulation isn't bad, but it's really lacking this waist twist right here, and that's frustrating. And for all of the articulation that is here, when I was playing around with her, when I was posing her, when I was getting shots of her, like, I feel like the articulation is limited. Even though it has pretty much everything that it should have, it still feels very, well, except for the waist twist, it still feels very limited when you're trying to put her in any kind of action pose, take any kind of photos with her, anything like that. Now bringing her up close again, we're going to take a look at the sculpt and the paint application. And first of all, let's start with her face. That I don't dislike the face. I think the face is a fairly decent sculpt for her, especially when this is being taken off of a comic book and not Gal Gadot and not the Justice League cartoon. This is just a comic book rendering, sculpting from the comic book source material, and I like her eyes. I like the eyes are well painted and they're looking forward. This is before we had anything like photo real. And also, considering that I ordered this from Big Bad Toy Store and I didn't get to see it before I got it, I feel very fortunate that the eyes are real solid. And the star on her tiara is painted very well too. It doesn't look like there's much miss in there. And I do like the metallic gold that they use in her tiara, in her armband, and on her armor. Now, coming down to the torso is where things start to fall apart, because you can very plainly see, I'm pretty sure even on camera, that her torso plastic and her arm plastic are two different flesh tones. Her head and her arms match, but her torso is a darker color, just like down here, that the top of her thighs match her arms and her face, but the bottom thigh is darker and matches the torso. Uh, that's a big miss. Like, that's something that just should not have been happening. Not on this scale, not on a figure that's showing as much skin as Diana. Like, that's inexcusable right there. Now we have her armor, and I do like the look of the armor. I like the soft skirted leather down here. I like the gold trim. I like the armband. I think the armor all looks very well. The bracers don't look bad, but I feel like the cuts in it to give it some texture, to give it some worn look, I feel like they could have been cut in deeper into the sculpt. As it is, you can barely see them, even with my lights on. It's a very soft sculpting right there that they could have been cut in deeper. Her hands are very soft and featureless that you can, I don't know, they look more like mitten hands. I know you have the cuts for the different fingers in there, but when you just look at them, they look small, they look too small, and they just look like mittens. I already told you what my issues with the legs were, but the boots I thought they did very well on. Once again, with this metallic red going on and the gold trim on the boots, I think the boots and the armor all looks very good. And I like that they kind of used a more muted red, that it's not like this bright red. I like that. It's like a more realistic color for the red on there. Now, the other issue is that, like, coming out of 2018, the plastic just feels so cheap. Like, it, if somebody was to hand this to me, I wouldn't have believed that this was a Mattel figure, just because, like, it doesn't feel the way a figure from Mattel should feel. But the unfortunate part of it is that I think this does feel exactly how figures from Mattel felt. If you remember my review of the Wonder Woman, oh, I forget what year it was, but the Wonder Woman figure that was based off of the TV show, it didn't have a great feel to it as well. And as a matter of fact, it had, like, I think one of the elbows was on backwards or something. So, and this was the end. This was towards the end. This is like when they should have been doing everything they could to try and keep the license, and instead they continued to move stuff like this. Okay, for accessories, Diana comes with her sword. The sword isn't a bad sculpt, and I like how it sort of has this broadleaf blade going on with it. I also like the handle and the cross piece and that ring pommel right there. But as you saw in the box, it was already bent. And you can even see right there that just being in the box bent like that, it's already developing a stress mark. So I'm going to have to be very careful when I try and smooth this out so that it doesn't break. Although truthfully, if it does break, it's not like I don't have other swords that I could outfit with her. But the sculpt isn't bad. It doesn't look bad in her hand. And at first I thought it might have been too small. But Grecian, if I remember correctly, Grecian and Roman swords were typically smaller than like medieval long swords. So it's actually not bad. It doesn't really come to a point. It's just rounded again. It has that soft sculpt to it that I would have liked to have seen this come out a little bit more to a tapered end right there. She also comes with two versions of her golden lasso. Of course, we have this version that is all looped up, that is meant to hang on the hook on her hip. Now, the problem is that this hook isn't spaced out very far from the body. So when I hook that on there, I feel like when I hook that on there, I feel like it doesn't catch very well. And it's sort of riding on top, and like it doesn't really sit in there. And also, it's very probably going to fall out. Another version of the golden lasso we have is this unfurled one where she can be holding the majority of the lasso here, and she has this end right here. But what I don't get is why didn't they just make this into a lasso end instead of like another curled up end right there? Like they could have easily just made this into a lasso loop. And that's one thing that I like with the McFarlane Wonder Woman 84 figure. I really like the unfurled golden lasso that came with that figure. Out of the box, Diana comes standard with a pair of gripping hands for holding her lasso and her sword. And the only other hand that she comes with is a replacement right hand that is a clenched fist. Here she is beside Mattel Multiverse Wonder Woman from Wonder Woman the 2017 movie with Cloak, and DC Direct Cheetah. Here she is beside Hasbro Marvel Legends Captain Marvel and Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Snake Eyes. Here she is beside McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Wonder Woman Last Night on Earth, and Wonder Woman from Wonder Woman 1984. Here she is beside Lanyard Toys, Xenomorph Drone, and City Hunter Predator. And finally, here she is, as always, beside Jazzwares, Wicked Cool Toys, Master Chief, and Noble Six. So while I am very glad that I have the Rebirth Wonder Woman, the last Wonder Woman that I needed from the Mattel line, I have to admit I am reminded why Mattel lost the license in the first place. When you compare this to other figures that were coming out, and yes, I understand it was 2018, and like I said at the beginning of this video, it was a different time for action figures, but when you compare this to what was coming out before, with Hasbro and with other companies, there's just no comparison. Like, there's no reason that this figure should have the limitations and the faults that it does have. Even something as basic as the drastically different two-tone skin tone, with the torso and the legs being completely different shade than the upper thighs, the arms, and her face portrait. Also, even though she does have all of the articulation of a figure at the time, and keep in mind, it was 2018, I can't remember how common something like double-jointed elbows were, especially on a female figure that has smaller arms, that even though she does have all the articulation at the time, she still feels so limited when you're trying to pose her, and I think that's because there's no waist twist and no head twist at all, or anything that's speakable of this figure, so you're always locked into those front-on shots, and that is so limiting for something that's supposed to be an action figure. So yes, I'm glad I have her, but I'm also glad I got her on sale. And I don't think I would have bought her if she wasn't. That's just me. Like, if you have the DC Multiverse line, and if you're still looking for figures for the DC Multiverse line, and you like the DC Multiverse line from Mattel, more power to you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I really am. I'm glad you're getting something out of it. But I don't know. I just feel like DC figures really need a win right now. So that's what I have for you today. This will probably be the last Mattel Multiverse figure that we'll take a look at, because even if I get other ones, more than likely I'm not going to compare her or compare them to anything else. So, until next time, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.